defending the free market, and making the moral case for capitalism. The Justin Moore Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Justin Moore Show, where we make sense of what's going on in this crazy, insane, out of control world. And a lot of you guys are wondering, hey Justin, why did you leave? Why did you go to Singapore? I can tell you guys right now, I feared the government shutdown. I mean, with the government shut down, how am I supposed to live without the government? How can you do anything? I'm always looking for the government to look after me, to protect me, to provide for me if I can't provide for myself. And so, with the government shut down, what the hell are you going to do? And so I had to flee the country. I went to Singapore. I went almost on the exact opposite side of the world. Okay, guys, that's not the real reason I left for Singapore. But yeah, Singapore is literally on the other side of the world. I tell you, just from LAX in Los Angeles to Singapore, as I was telling you guys, was that last episode or the episode before? It's like an 18-hour flight. One of the longest in the world. Holy crap, that was a long damn flight. Go through a few movies, sleep a few times, read a little bit. You're just alternating. Thank goodness the plane wasn't totally full. I had 3 seats to myself, kind of lay across 3 seats, that sort of thing. There is no way in hell I could do that trip. If I was a middle seat, it's a completely full plane. Just eating those meals on the plane, you got to have the tray next to you, because I have the one tray for drinks. I got my tray for my food. I don't get how people can do that. So I guess it makes sense why most people don't do that. If they do, they stay there for a few weeks. But I flew on the other side of the world, over 10,000 miles from LAX to Singapore. I was there for a week and then flew back, which on the way back was a little bit shorter. It was about 15 and a half hours. So yeah, crazy time difference. Flying out of Singapore, 11 o'clock in the morning, Tuesday morning, and then you're flying back and you land in Los Angeles at 10 a.m. That is wild. So talk about jet lag. So I am back. The government shut down that everybody was fearing. Oh my God, it's not going to happen. Oh my gosh, it did happen. It lasted 3 freaking days. The government shutdowns. Who gives a crap? Okay, now they pushed off. They made a deal. The Democrats or the Republicans are calling this Chuck Schumer shutdown. The Democrats are calling it the Trump shutdown. It's all these little games back and forth. And what do we get at the end of the day? We're going to, just kick the can down the road. We'll decide what happens February 8th. Okay, so that's the new deadline. So we're going to fear another government shutdown in just a matter of time again. So I guess I need to work on my next trip so I can flee the country, because I am scared crapless right now, okay? So, I thought I would do on today's show, even though there's so much going on. You could talk about economic news. The Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen, her last meeting. We have Jerome Powell coming in. They didn't raise interest rates. We could talk about Trump's State of the Union speech. There's so much to get to, but I think hopefully I can record an episode here in just the next few days so I can get another one out right away. Just crank it out, since I've been a little bit absent here. But I want to do on today's show, I just want to focus on what I learned going to Singapore, seeing Singapore. And there's a reason that I do all this traveling. I want to gain knowledge, and it adds to my perspective to how I see the world. Like when I interviewed Doug Casey. Doug Casey is one of those guys, extremely, extremely well-read, super smart. And on top of that, this is a guy who's literally traveled the entire world, who's lived in several countries. When you talk to him, you sense that sort of wisdom. You're like, wow. Like when you talk with a lot of people in the United States, most people in the U.S., they don't freaking travel. They don't even know. There's some people in Montana, the state where I live, they have never left Montana. So talk about people who don't have any idea about other cultures, religions, that are drastically different from Christian religions. Most people don't exactly have a perspective besides what they've grown up with. Oh man, I remember a long time ago hearing some sort of statistic where it's like, I don't even want to give you guys a percentage, but there's a large percentage of people who basically end up living essentially 50-mile radius from where they grew up. So most people's world is so tiny. And that's why for me, I just think if I can add a different perspective, there's a lot of libertarian shows out there. There's a lot of good libertarian shows out there. There's ones, it just depends what you like. The focus and what I like to do on my show, I like to talk about economics, because I think that is where a lot of people fall short. I think that is the easiest way to bring people to our side, is talking economics. Most people have no understanding of economics. People who think they understand economics, it's the Keynesian view of economics, which is so screwed up. But obviously, when you go to debate these guys, you can't say, hey, dude, you don't even know what the hell you're talking about. You're retarded, That's not a good way to debate with somebody. But just to, hey, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I used to think it was that way too, or I used to think it was consumer spending that drove the economy. Because that's all the press talks about. But that's not the way it works. Consumer spending is a lagging indicator of what's going on in the economy, which you really need to look at. And like Mark Skousen, I've had him on my show twice. Dr. Skousen, he's written several books. He wrote one book talking about gross output. That's the way what's going on in the economy. That's business to business spending. What's going on with other businesses, not about the consumers. And what he has found, based on that model, is that consumer spending is much less part of the economy than what you hear in the press. What you hear in the press is 70% of what goes on in the economy and that determines growth in the economy is consumer spending, or maybe it's 75%. So it's basically 3/4. So it's like, oh my God, we have to focus on the consumer. But no, do you have a business-friendly environment? Do you have a friendly environment for capital, for people to invest, foreign investment in your economy? And that's why you can argue with what the Trump tax cuts. I've already argued many times, the Trump tax cuts. Yes, there's still a lot to be desired. There's a lot more they can do. But it is a very, very small step in the right direction. Now, I think it is, and what I mean by that is it is giving us a step closer towards a more business-friendly environment compared to what we have with Obama, or what we had with Obama, which obviously isn't saying much. Because Obama, he was all bashing businessmen. Oh my God, you're horrible if you're rich, So anyway, guys, when I was in Singapore, holy crap, I was there for 1 week. What an experience. Now, if I just went to Singapore, if I just went and stayed in a hotel downtown, I just kind of toured around downtown, I flew back, I think my view of Singapore would be a lot different than what it is. But when I stayed in Singapore, I didn't stay at a hotel. A guy that I met at the very first Contra cruise, who's a pilot, he flies the 777s. I won't say what airline he flies for. I guess I'll tell you his first name, but I don't want to make it. I never asked for permission with this guy. If I can talk about it, I don't want to get him in any sort of trouble. But his name is Johnny, and I stayed at his apartment. And holy smokes, it was such an eye-opening experience just to be able to live where Singaporeans live, because there's just so much. I got the vibe staying in Singapore. It was like I was in the novel 1984. I kid you not. Okay, it's been years and years and years since I've read 1984. But it's basically the idea of big government watching you. It's kind of like, okay, watch the movie. Okay, for you young little millennial listeners listening to this show, it's like the vibe you get from watching V for Vendetta. You got the cameras everywhere. This is how Singapore is. Before I left for Singapore, and a lot of libertarians in general, they think of Singapore as a very, very libertarian society. In terms of economic freedom, yeah, Singapore is pretty free. There's some people that rank it, some indexes rank it second in the world in terms of freedom, right under Hong Kong. So economically, Singapore is pretty free. They have the largest port in the world in terms of trade. They engage in a lot of trade. Their exports in terms of GDP, I think it's like 400%. So economic freedom. They have low taxes, that sort of thing. But what I have learned going to Singapore, they are not free at all. It is, like I just stated earlier, it is that novel 1984. Like the apartments where most Singaporeans live, they're all built by the government. They all look exactly the same. You have dozens and dozens and dozens of apartments. You can just tell these apartments were built on grids. You can tell it was all centrally planned, like where Johnny lived. You have this little cluster of apartments, and in, I guess basically what we'd call a middle of a little cluster of apartments, they have like a little market. Basically, it's a place where people can go. You go to your little restaurants, get your Indonesian food, Indian food, Chinese food, Japanese food, even Western food, at these little places. And like Johnny, he'd just go there. He'd just go there every day just to eat. You could have breakfast, lunch, dinner. It's open 24/7 there. They have a little grocery store there if you need to buy some milk or, some little snacks. And also that's right where, so it's just amazing just watching this. It is so crazy though, seeing something that's so centrally planned and you can just tell it. There's no creativity. It's not like you're in some U.S. city where you got the neighborhoods, and everything looks different. You got all your different stores, but they just make the apartments with those little sort of markets in the middle. It's just such a big government vibe. And there literally is cameras everywhere too, going into the apartments. And Johnny was telling me, like with his apartment, essentially with a lot of these apartments, you're spending basically about $400,000 US for these apartments. If I were to guess, they're probably maybe 1,000 square feet. That might be overstating it. We'll just say, yeah, probably 1,000 square feet. A few bedrooms, little bathroom. But here's the thing. People don't rent apartments from the government. People mortgage these apartments. They buy them. And they get them for 99-year leases. So you buy this apartment for, say, $400,000, $500,000. And then after 99 years, the property goes back to the government. So there's one example right there. Big government. You pay like you own it, but after 99 years, you don't own it. So essentially, your lifetime, you think you're passing something on to your kids and grandkids? Nope. 99 years, it's gone. And Johnny and also one of my Uber drivers, when I was going to his apartment, and they were pointing out to me, a car that you buy in the United States for about $30,000. So you can get a pretty decent car for $30,000, very reliable car, maybe like almost like a new Accord or Toyota, whatever. That same car in Singapore would cost you about $130,000. You look at terms of taxes you pay. You also have, all the regulations. You have to buy permits. Essentially, the Singaporean government, they want to discourage people from owning cars because you have 5.6 million people live in a very small place, so they want to limit congestion. So that's their answer to it. It's like, well, let's make it so only the rich can afford cars, or that will want cars. United States, if you imagine, most of you probably own cars. Could you imagine not owning a car? When I lived in Montana, I could not imagine not having a car. You need to have a car in Montana. It's the 4th largest state in the union. We don't have rail systems here in Montana. I live just outside of Billings, the largest city in Montana. You include the suburbs. You're looking at about 130,000 people in Billings. You compare that to these big cities. You got, 500,000 people, 1 million people. You include the metropolitan area in New York City. What is that, 22 million people? So it's just a different world over there. But I will say, of all the big government vibe that I get from Singapore, holy crap, walking around downtown, I can't believe how clean it is. I've never seen a downtown area so clean in my life. Everything is green. Everything's trimmed. All the shrubs are trimmed. There's not trash in the street. It's so clean. So, some could argue back, oh, Justin, well, see, big government works. It all comes at a cost. That's the thing. You can point out, well, Like say during the Great Depression, if you ever go to just outside of Las Vegas, you can go see Hoover Dam. You'd be like, wow, look at this giant structure. It's one of the few structures that were built on Earth that you can see from space. It's like, here, this was built by the government. Well, look at what government can do. But all of that comes at a cost. It's Frederick Bastiat, the seen and the unseen. Okay, the government takes your money. It taxes the hell out of you. And it builds these structures. Some of them can be kind of beautiful. Other ones can be very blocky and very structured because there's no creativity with government. They all believe in the central planning and everything needs to look the same, identical. Everything's on a grid. That's when government gets involved. Everything, it's like with government and education. It's why government with education doesn't work. Because people learn things differently. But with government education, oh, nope, everybody learns the same. You hear a lecture from the professor, you take your notes, you take tests. There's no innovation. After decades and decades, centuries of education, you think things would be a little bit different in terms of learning. Okay, yeah, I guess some students have iPads or some things that are online now, but overall, education system is pretty much the same. And our education system, the younger generations, no offense for some of you who are listening, but they're getting dumber. You got to get a 4-year degree in college to have the equivalent education of someone, your parents. When they finished high school, you're as smart as them. Oh, you think you're smarter than your parents? Then you're probably about the same with your little college degree. So it's the government is a complete failure anywhere it puts its little mitts. So with Singapore, yes, you see some beautiful structures. The downtown area is absolutely beautiful. All the different buildings. But there are so many different U.S. companies that have structures in Singapore. Singapore really is a financial hub. But that's why I tell you guys from the very beginning of this episode here, how if I just were to stay at a hotel downtown Singapore, I just walked around downtown Singapore and that was it. I'd be like, wow, so clean. All these buildings are so modern. Like, oh my gosh, like I was just in Cuba a few months ago. Cuba, that total hellhole. Or if I were to talk like Trump, that S-hole. But then he takes all this crap. Oh my gosh, Trump's calling these places assholes. Like, are you guys freaking kidding me? I can't believe this sort of things that is news today with the mainstream press. It just blows my damn mind. I don't get it. And then it's like they all read from the same script. They all say the same crap. That's why I stopped watching the news years ago. It's just a waste of time. So, but Singapore, like you see several of these structures. 3 of these buildings go up together. And on top of these 3 buildings, it's like a boat that sits on top of all 3. I've taken pictures of that. It's up on my Facebook. Maybe I'll post one to Twitter if I know how to do that. The downtown area of Singapore is it really is stunning. Oh my gosh. And you see all those ships going in and out. It was such a great experience just to witness all that firsthand. Overall, per capita GDP in Singapore, I think it's around $54,000 a year for the average citizen. So overall, they're very, very wealthy in that respect. But the government is watching over everything. The government censors the press like you wouldn't believe. It's very biased. If you want to have a website in Singapore, I was reading something here. You have to at least have 50,000 followers essentially, and you got to be approved by the Singapore government, so you can have a website. Everything has to be approved. A radio show, you got to approve it through the Singapore government. Okay, here's one example. I'm leaving from Johnny's apartment. I'm gonna go, tour around downtown. I'm just taking the local train, so here I am hanging out with the locals, on the train. Well, before I got on the train, I stopped at one of these little shops, and it said a potato pancake. I'm like, okay, well, that sounds interesting. Let me try that. So I got it. I really enjoyed it, but I didn't really have time, so I had to go catch the train. So I'm kind of nibbling on this potato pancake in this little sack on the train. And I have my little water. I'm enjoying it for about 5-10 minutes. Then as I just got done nibbling on the pancake, I have to wash down the rest of the potato pancake. I'm opening up my water, just starting to chug it. But as I'm doing this whole motion here, there's an intercom that just started. It said, no eating or drinking on the train. And it was exactly as I just finished swigging my water, put my little lid on, and I just kind of look up like, oh, okay, I guess I can't eat on the train. Well, I ended up seeing like a little sign later with a $500 fine if you eat or drink on the trains. Because they have cameras in the trains watching you. And during my whole train ride on the way to downtown, which was like 30 minutes, that was the only time I heard that announcement, was when it saw me eating the potato pancake and drinking my water. So Big Brother was watching me. Luckily, I didn't get a fine unless I'm just waiting for it to come here. And I mean, you've heard things, I'm sure, about Singapore, spitting gum on the sidewalk. It's like a $1,000 fine. I can't remember exactly what it is. They fine you for everything. If you were dealing drugs in Singapore, that's a death penalty. They don't screw around with that. Also, it's just with every little thing with Singapore. Oh, every citizen? Yeah, there's no Second Amendment. They completely banned guns for everybody. So there's very little freedom in that respect compared to what we're used to here in the United States. But overall, I mean, in terms of Asian countries, Singapore is very safe. But just to see something like that firsthand, you're walking through these streets, you literally get that vibe. You're walking in these little neighborhoods at these apartments. You see these little people walking randomly here and there. Like, it seems kind of, peaceful, and I guess the grass is so green. I mean, they don't have 4 seasons there. All it is summertime. When I was there, I was sweating my butt off. It's so humid. It was like 86, 90 degrees there. And that's like their cool season. I can't deal with humidity like that. You walk out, you start feeling like you need to take another shower. It's just crazy. Compared to, Montana, it's dry heat. We have the 4 seasons, obviously. But it is literally like I was in the novel 1984. Or like in V for Vendetta, when you have Natalie Portman running through the streets trying to get home. And, the government's got their curfew. The sirens are going off. It's that sort of vibe when you go to Singapore. Absolutely amazing. And then I end up... So basically, I spent a week in Singapore. I went one day right before I ended up flying home. I took a 7-hour bus ride. Went into Malaysia. Went to Kuala Lumpur. And, Kuala Lumpur, oh my gosh. I don't know where that is on the Freedom Index, but you can definitely tell it's definitely much poorer compared to Singapore. It's a little more of a hellhole-ish. But like I stayed at a hotel, a 4-star hotel in Kuala Lumpur cost me $46. And this hotel I stayed at, it was connected to this giant mall. I'm not going to say this right. Beja, I don't even have it pulled up in front of me. Beja something Times. It's basically the Times Square of Kuala Lumpur. And my hotel was connected to a 10-story mall. So I just walked right outside my hotel lobby. I walk into this mall. I spent hours and hours going back and forth. I ended up buying like a hiking backpack. I paid $46 for it. Here in the U.S., that Deuter hiking backpack would probably cost $120, $150. So my stuff was so cheap there. It was just crazy. I bought I went to this restaurant called Good Friend Burger. It sounded like a restaurant quality burger with fries and a drink. It cost me $5. So it's way cheaper there. And the currency they use over in Kuala Lumpur is the ringgit. And 4 ringgits equal $1 US. It was just a good experience. I wish I would have spent another day in Kuala Lumpur. But it was cool just to see that and get in more of a third world country. And yeah, it's really cool to be able to buy things that cheaply, And when I was walking in the mall, I'm serious, hours and hours. I'm going up, okay, take the escalators up. I'm on the next floor. I'm on like the 5th floor of the mall. And I'm hearing kids screaming. I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, why are kids screaming? I end up walking. It's like I'm just going into another shop. I walk in. It opens up. It's an amusement park. I see this giant roller coaster. There's some little fair rides in there. It's like, holy crap. I couldn't believe it. I mean, this mall area was so huge. So I was blown away. I mean, I definitely want to go back in Southeast Asia. It was such a good experience. Again, just to see that stuff firsthand. You don't see anything like this when you're here in the United States. And I have a few more trips planned this year. because I want to experience the world. I want to try to get a sort of view of the world, at least kind of try to understand a little more of what Doug Casey has seen in his time, which I have a long way to go to even get close to where Doug Casey's at. But a guy who's been all over Africa, which I still haven't even been to the continent of Africa. I mean, just all over, because the cultures are so different. The religions are so different in Singapore. You know, there's a lot of Muslims running around, which you never see in the United States. It's very, very diverse. All the citizens there, they do speak English, which does help. I've been to, over in Germany. I couldn't find anyone that spoke English for some reason, which I know a lot of them do, but for some reason they didn't for when I was there. So I don't know what the hell was going on. So again, I encourage a lot of you guys out there, if you get the time, if you're able to get away, Singapore, just if you want to witness and be, you're in the novel 1984, where big government is watching you, where they have very little press freedom, very little freedom in general besides economic freedom. Singapore is that place. There's a lot of censorship. There is no free speech. Is this the way the U.S. government is heading? It seems like it. It seems like it more and more. And actually, I have just right here. I'm not going to read any articles, but I have just for instance to give you guys an idea where Singapore is on a freedom index. Now, obviously, the different things that they look at can kind of affect where the country is on the scale. But basically, this is come from the website Reporters Without Borders, the Freedom Index. They have the U.S. as number 43 on the list, and they have Singapore as number 151 out of 180. North Korea is 180. So just a very intolerant government. Government doesn't want you to have any opinions. They can jail you. They can punish you if you have any sort of opinions that are going against the government. So it really is. It's a different world. So the U.S., under Obama, the U.S. it keeps getting less and less free. We're trying to militarize the world, invade all these countries when we're broke ourselves. What's going to happen with the future of the U.S. when our economy comes crumbling down? Are we going to become more free or less free? Well, if more people think that it's the government is the reason we have prosperity, then we're going to become less and less free. I've seen what it looks like when the citizens don't have any power over the government, or the government instills fear in the citizens if you speak up against it. That's what I saw in Singapore. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't want that to happen here in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in this crazy, insane, out of control world. I read these news stories day after day, and I keep wondering, what the hell? Are you serious? This can't be real. No. And it's real. It's just crazy what's going on. And things keep getting more and more crazy. Okay, we got Bitcoin right now. It's around, 10,000 a coin. Just a few weeks ago, it was at 20,000. Gold's actually staying up there around 1340. The dollar keeps falling. The Federal Reserve, it's only a matter of time when they start cranking up and printing money again. When they start realizing, oh crap, the economy's collapsing down. Right now, people still think it's strong. We are on the cusp of things going to hell. But I can't say exactly, it's going to be next week when everything goes to hell. No, I don't know. Could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, months, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, next year. I don't know. But what I want to keep doing, and that's why I keep traveling. I want to be able to inform you guys. I want to be able to see signs. I'm like, oh crap, oh yeah, this is what to watch for. We don't want this to happen. Oh yeah, I know what happens when this happens and how it can affect people. It's just scary. And then we have, a lot of these guys that are on the Fed. They want to wage a war on cash. They want to eliminate the use of cash. They want to be able to watch every transaction you make. They want to tax Bitcoin, which was seen as one of the selling points for Bitcoin, where you can hide essentially money from the government. You can hide money that you make when you speculate on Bitcoin. We don't know how much time we have left. So prepare yourself, my friends. And I'll be back next week. We can talk about, I don't know what the hell we'll talk about. Maybe State of the Union, maybe we'll tie that with Venezuela. I don't know. There's so much to get to. If you guys want to catch up on old episodes, go to justinmooreshow.com. More is spelled M-O-H-R. Click on the Amazon link, make your purchases through there. Get a small commission back, cost you nothing extra. You guys know what to do to help me out. I thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk with all you guys next week, and I'm looking forward to it. This is Justin Moore, signing off.